What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh. Today we're talking about The Killer. This is a new film from David Fincher starring Michael Fassbender. It's rated R. Some of you lucky folks out there have had the opportunity to see this in theaters, but unfortunately it wasn't playing anywhere near me for the last couple of weeks, so I had to wait till it dropped on Netflix this weekend. First and foremost, I gotta voice my frustration about that. This is a film that deserves to be seen on the big screen. Anything by David Fincher honestly does. Fincher is probably my favorite living director. He's made so many great classics, from Fight Club to Seven, The Social Network. I even like some of his lesser known films like Alien 3. People are really going to disagree with that one, including Fincher himself, who openly disowns that film. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about this one. The two words that I would use to describe this are simple and effective. The Killer, which is based on a French graphic novel, stars Michael Fassbender, as I said before, who plays a nameless hitman whose latest job goes awry, putting his life and the life of someone he cares about in danger. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The narrative is very simple. There's no side plots, no useless baggage. It's a very simple and to the point story. More than anything else, it's focused on the cold, calculated routine of this emotionless, ruthless killer. And some would say that it's difficult to be invested in a character who's so emotionless. But besides the fact that Fassbender is really good in this, we'll talk about his performance soon. But I think Fincher does a really good job of planting seeds in this character that are just really interesting, even though it might not seem so on the surface. Because the hitman that we're following through this film, he's nameless. We don't ever learn his real name. And he has this very specific routine. He does these exercises, he listens to the Smiths while he's doing his work. He also narrates the film. There's very little actual dialogue. Most of the talking is narration, and it's a lot of him trying to pump himself up to do these missions, telling himself to remain emotionless, that he needs to forbid empathy to achieve this level of perfection that he's trying to. And it certainly helps that Fassbender is one of my favorite actors working today. He carries so much of the weight of this film on his shoulders, and really him and David Fincher teaming up, it's like a dream team for me. I think it's also important to note that this is not an action movie. I'm concerned that some people might go into this expecting a lot of action, and there is one fight scene that has some incredible choreography, shockingly awesome sound design, and creative camera work, but it's mostly isolated to that one scene. Other than that, this is not a film that is filled to the brim with action. It's not John Wick. I did kind of already say this, but it's much more so about the methodical actions of this killer and what his intentions actually imply. It is very dreary and cynical, but in a really engaging way that only Fincher can capture in such a visceral style. I always find it so funny that critics did not like Fight Club when it first came out because they thought it was too cynical, too exploitative of toxic masculinity to create this really fun and engaging experience that really should terrify people. And I think a lot of folks just missed the mark in terms of understanding what Fincher was going for there. And all of his films have this sort of nihilistic nature to them. But this one might even have a little bit of self-awareness. I mean, Fassbender's assassin character seeks precise, methodical perfection, just like Fincher does. He's notorious for obtaining like 100 takes for just one scene. Maybe it was unintentional, maybe it was intentional, but I tend to think it's the latter. Although I do think this is a good film, I don't think it's quite great. And I don't even really know that it's necessarily lacking anything in particular. It's just very simple in nature, and it does get bogged down by that. There are no major twists and turns, and for the most part I could predict what the killer was going to do next and what would happen to him. For one thing though, if I were to suggest improvements, I think the two different sides of this character could have been explored more. There's this idea that he, in addition to killing people for money, he also wishes to retire and live a normal life with his partner. But that element of his character is brushed over so briefly that I feel like it doesn't fully capitalize on what could have been a really interesting look at the dichotomy of his character. There are also some lapses in logic that bugged me a little bit. For instance, Fassbender often parks very close to his target's house. He watches them for a long time and sleeps in his car. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like more people would notice his suspicious activity. Perhaps it's a writer's oversight, or it's just me being extra critical. But bottom line, if you like David Fincher as a filmmaker and the idea of watching Michael Fassbender hunt down other hitmen, I see no reason why you won't find enjoyment in this. The Killer is definitely in the bottom half of his filmography though. It's by no means my favorite of his, It's much more simple than something like Gone Girl or Fight Club or Seven, but it's still good. Not every movie has to be a masterpiece to be appreciated. And even though the story here wasn't perfect, it wasn't very complicated, even though it did have some thematic undertones, the technical elements are just on point. I mentioned before the sound design is really cool, and there's a gimmick in that one fight scene that I was talking about, during which the camera almost vibrates as he's fighting this big hulking enemy. And it's one of the reasons I wish that I got to see this in the theater, because I feel like that would have played better with surround sound in a big auditorium. But for what it is, I enjoyed checking it out on Netflix, and I don't think you'll regret checking it out either. So I'm gonna give The Killer 3.5 stars. It's good, not great. As always, I'm now gonna turn it to you guys. Let me know down in the comments if you watched this. What did you think of it? And also let me know what your favorite David Fincher movie is. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more reviews like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.